Recently, the Q2 financial report, monitoring report indicated an in-year pressure of circa 34 million, caused by a variety of global and national factors. Quite rightly, in response, the Council announced that it would be undertaking a series of actions to mitigate against the impact of these cost increases. Could the Leader indicate what actions have been completed and what the expected impact of the changes achieved to date are expected to be?
Councillor Taylor. Mr Mayor, Deputy Mayor, what I will do is I'll try and provide a summary of what we're doing, and then I might need to bring my Cabinet Member, Cllr Paul Davies, in, if time permits. Firstly, there are immediate actions that have been taken on the back of the major financial challenges we face. As you'll know, we are stopping all recruitment, and each recruitment process that takes place will need to have a robust case to make sure that we are recruiting the right people in the right place, and there's a process for doing that. We also carried out a complete asset review along with our partners to make sure that we actually look at every single building. There's also cost reduction exercises that are taking place. For example, any agency spending, we are halting. We are reviewing the capital plan, and we are also looking at how we utilise our reserves in an efficient and prudent manner. Prior to the announcement the government made, the LGA on a cross-party basis did a number of actions because council tax by itself is not a solution, and we had to put a solid case to government. 14th of October 2022, on a cross-party basis, all the leaders of the LGA jointly wrote to the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt to put our case forward. We've also launched a campaign around Save Local Services, which has identified around 800 services local government delivers. And the case is very, very clear, Mr Deputy Mayor. A long-term settlement is needed, now more so than ever. The LGA submission to inform government fiscal plan was also submitted, and the kind of thing we talked about was, after a decade of cuts, from 2010 to 2020, local government has lost £15 billion from its baseline budgets. That's across all local authorities. At the same time, what we did was we actually submitted a proposal which identified an in-year gap of £2.4 billion. And for us, that was £34 million at that moment in time. That was based on an 8% inflation increase. And as we know, the inflation rate is now around 11%. So the figure has already inflated. Next year, it's going to be £3.4 billion deficit for local government, and the year after, 24-25, £4.5 billion. On top of that, Mr Deputy Mayor, adult social care second class solution is now wearing very thin. We've got a £6.5 billion deficit to make sure that we just keep our services at standstill. Bearing in mind, we've got massive cost pressures on top of massive demand pressures. Children's services in the last 5 years, Mr Deputy Mayor, has had a cost pressure increase of 25%. That is a massive increase that we are seeing go up year on year. Just to maintain children's services at the level it is at the moment, we'll need an additional £1.6 billion. That is quite worrying when there's no more money. What I will do now, Mr Deputy Mayor, is if there is anything else to add, Paul, can I ask you to
be brief. I think you've covered some of the key areas. Certainly, all the actions we identified have been, last month have been put in place, and we're moving forward with recruitment freeze, as said, review of council buildings, and reductions in other expenses. And I think we're all aware, and it'll be noted from the Q2 report, that we expect these actions to achieve 4 million savings in year. This will go alongside other action we've been taking, such as reviewing the capital programme and, of course, deploying our reserves. And again, the fact that we, at this point, have sufficient reserves is a testament to this administration holding firm, certainly in recent years, and not spending those reserves on other areas that we did not need to do at that particular point. Certainly, we're in a position where the government delayed or delivered its autumn statement. That statement was very clear that there would be no additional support coming to us as local authorities. And as the leaders outlined, that has put in huge pressures on all authorities, including ourselves, and unfortunately is pushing us into tough decisions for years to come. We've been completely open about the major financial challenge, and we'll continue to take actions on staffing, buildings and investment to do all we can to mitigate the issues that we're facing.
Thank you. Supplementary, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you for the extensive response, but I don't think you've actually answered the question. We indicated there's been discussions with leaders of the various parties about some proposals that were coming forward, including closing buildings. I'm not aware those buildings yet have closed, and of course the longer we take before we take the actions, the more money that's burning. I know they're unpalatable decisions. I appreciate that. I think we all appreciate that. This isn't something that we as a council have on our own. It's something that is shared across the country. But the longer we take to take the decisions, the more money that is burning, and therefore the bigger problem that we're creating for ourselves. So I don't get a sense of the urgency that we certainly had when we were dealing with the pandemic, where the council came together and we worked collectively to solve problems. I don't see that same, and I'd like to see some more urgency from the administration taking the decisions that need to be taken so that we're not going to solve the problem, but at least we can minimise the impact. But we're not doing that at the moment. The decisions that are being taken need to be taken and actions put in place. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly can assure Councillor Taylor that action is being taken with the greatest urgency possible. And I think that's evident to everybody in this chamber who's listened to the feedback that we've given on our finances and the feedback on our action plans. In terms of assets and buildings, that review is due in January, and therefore we'll be taking decisions based on that review in January. There is constant review of this. Certainly it is something, and I'm just looking at the Chief Exec, who's, I'm sure having many sleepless nights on this one, because this is constant review on a weekly basis with our executive team, and of course with myself as a portfolio holder, again, that same engagement. And also, as a cabinet, we are having increasingly now more frequent discussions around the progress and how we're moving forward and the issues we're facing. So there is absolute urgency. If there wasn't, we'd be sitting back saying very little and not sharing that much. So certainly you can take it from me that nobody's sitting back, nobody's complacent, and in fact we're determined to meet the challenges that we have got. And if unfortunately there are really tough decisions, they'll be taken in a measured and proper way.